Please click on the subscribe button so you get notified when the latest content drops. Now, let's kick it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So let's start off this episode by talking about the NBA and the move that has shaken the league today, which is Damian Lillard being waived by the Milwaukee Bucks in order to sign Miles Turner to a 4-year, $107 million deal. Now, the Bucks had to make this move in order to free up the cap space that they needed to sign Miles Turner. And since Damian Lillard did not want to be there from the beginning, it's been reported that since they are waived, he is ecstatic because now he gets to be in Portland with his family and he gets to decide where he can go play next. Because of these factors, he was jubilant that they decided to waive him, and they're paying his full contract. So it was $113 million that was still left on his deal, I believe, over the next 2 seasons. That now gets prolonged over the next 5 years and spread out into $22.3 million per year. With the Bucks making this move, it opened up the salary cap space that they needed in order to sign Miles Turner, who, by all intents and purposes, are going to be healthy. And since the Milwaukee Bucks weren't going to have Damian Lillard and Dame didn't want to be there, it was a mutual agreement to part ways. Dame's still going to get paid. Dame is not going to play next year because of his torn ACL. And honestly, where should Dame go play? I think Miami could be an option for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he has interest in coming home to Golden State because we know he's originally from Oakland and he grew up a Golden State Warrior fan. So maybe Mike Dunleavy makes a move to try to sign him and bring him in, not this year, but the following year, especially because Jimmy Butler's not going to be around. Because I think this is next year will be Jimmy's last year on his deal. And we know Jimmy's going to probably either want a contract extension or something, and he might not be worth it at that point. We're still wait and see on that scenario. He could go back to Portland, and Portland has been making moves, ladies and gentlemen, this offseason. It's not like they haven't done anything to try to bolster that team up. I think Portland, maybe not this year, but in the following year, could be potentially the next Oklahoma City Thunder. And by all intents and purposes, it seems like Dame loves Portland. He loves the state of the state of Oregon, I think. And because that's where he started his career, he's a loyalty guy, has a lot of memories in that building. And I think he has a good relationship with Chauncey Billups. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back there. But this move for the Milwaukee Bucks, it now allows them to be able to compete next year with Giannis on that roster because they did re-sign Bobby Portis. They did lose Brook Lopez, however, but they still got Giannis. And by all intents and purposes, it looks like Giannis and Miles Turner both seem elated by this move because now they get to play together. They're going to be a very strong defensive team. Now, the issue is, do they have the right head coach to guide them in the playoffs? And Doc Rivers, as of late, has not proven to be that head coach. His record in the playoffs after winning his one and only championship has been atrocious. Multiple times he's had a 3-1 lead in the conference or in the playoffs, and he's blown it. He can't close them out. For some reason, he can't close them out. That's just as much on the players as it is on Doc, but the one constant factor is this, and it's Doc Rivers not making the proper adjustments. So is this move good for the Milwaukee Bucks, especially next year with with Jason Tatum being out? I always say fucking Channing Tatum. No, with Jason Tatum being out next year, with the Celtics essentially being in a rebuild, Tyrese Halliburton dealing with his injury, and now the Bucks taking away a vital piece in Miles Turner from Indiana. All these things, it's especially because we know the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks have had that heated rivalry over the last few years. It's just like when Ray Allen left the Celtics for Miami. This is similar because you got Miles Turner leaving the Pacers for the Bucks, and over the last couple seasons, there's been a rivalry there. And it's safe to say now, I think Milwaukee kind of has the edge. It depends on what moves the Pacers make. They still have, I think, in my opinion, the better head coach in Rick Carlisle. But it's all wait and see. I think the Bucks have positioned themselves well in the East to compete next year. And I think the ultimate deterring factor there is, will Doc Rivers finally be able to make the proper adjustments that's going to allow Giannis and that team to get over the hump? We'll wait and see. I don't know. Till I see it, I won't believe it.
Guys, have you heard? Nelson, tell the people.
Stadium Productions is an official affiliate of HBO Max. Click on the link in the description and sign up so you can watch hit series like Hard Knocks, Game of Thrones, and House of Dragons.
Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when the latest content
Drops. Now let's talk about some other moves that have caught my attention that will definitely be making the league as a whole completely different next year. Could be making certain teams better, could be making other teams worse. But one thing's for sure, I think my Golden State Warriors and I think the Los Angeles Lakers are in a bit of trouble. Warriors haven't necessarily made any significant moves this offseason. I also don't know what they're going to do with Jonathan Kuminga, even though I love JK. I think JK has the potential to become something, a star for the Warriors in the post Curry era if given the proper opportunity. I just want to see him play and feed off of Butler, Curry, maybe Draymond. I don't know if him and Draymond are a good fit together, but I think he can play with Butler and Curry well. So we don't know what they're going to do there. They also need, in my opinion, a big. They lost Kevin Looney this year, so I don't know what my Warriors are going to essentially end up doing to really put themselves in a position next year to compete for a title. Same with the Lakers. They just lost Dorian Finney-Smith. They still haven't signed a center. They signed LaRavia, who played for the Kings last year, but came on towards the end of the year, didn't necessarily have a stellar year. Could he continue to have that for the Lakers in the upcoming season? We don't know. It's with the new ownership and the Lakers prioritizing now building around Luka in the future. It kind of seems like they're not fully invested in competing for a title this year, as they with LeBron. Even though they have LeBron James on that roster, they're more leaning towards building for the future and getting the right pieces around him. And LeBron, which actually brings me to the LeBron James factor. He opted into his contract for 2025, 2026 for $52.6 million. And then Rich Paul came out with his comments saying that LeBron wants to compete for a championship, which kind of gave me kind of mixed signals. Because in my opinion, I thought the Lakers, by all intents and purposes, with LeBron, Luka, I think Rui's still there, and some other, and Austin Reeves is also still there. I thought they were built to compete for a title. I guess a lot of people didn't see it that way, and I guess it sounded like LeBron might be seeking a trade, which came back that the league doesn't really have interest in LeBron, especially at 40 years old, and especially if he's going to opt into a $52.6 million contract this year. I think LeBron plays for the Lakers the entirety of the season. I don't think in the next year we'll see. He might do a sign and trade, or he can pick and choose his destination next year. Now, next year, if that is the case, realistically, what's the salary that LeBron's going to be demanding next year? Because I don't know if a team is going to want to pay 50 million, 60 million, 40 million for 2 years of LeBron, 40 million a year, 50 million a year, not 40 million for 2 years. I'm talking about 40, 50, 60 million for 2 years, essentially, of LeBron James per year for his services if he's not the same player that he used to be and you can't necessarily get your team over the hump. I think LeBron at some point, if he wants to, even though he says he doesn't care about ring culture, and even though he says he doesn't, I think he thinks ring culture might be overrated and he doesn't understand rings matter. And if he's going to be a ring chaser, like he's been known to be, because that's what he did when he went to the Miami Heat. When he went back to Cleveland, he basically made them sign Kevin Love and bring players that he could get along with well there. Same thing when he left Cleveland the second time and he went to the Lakers. He forced them to get like AD and make moves to try to compete for him. They got a bubble championship, even though I put an asterisk on it because there was a layoff. There was a layoff. They only played like 7 games, and it was just like it was not bad. It was not what I wanted to see. I would have rather them cancel the season at that point. But he won a ring there, and because of those factors, he's made his name being known as a ring chaser. So if that's the case, I could see him going back to Cleveland. That team is basically built up. They could use LeBron James. I would love it if he would come to the Warriors and pair up with Steph. But if that does happen, it would be in Steph's favor. Steph would never leave, would have never left the team. He brought LeBron James to his team, and then they won a championship together. Now, I think LeBron would win the Finals MVP if that has anything, like if that's what he wants to do. But I think if he were to come to the Warriors and they win a championship, that would be a feather in Steph's cap in that GOAT conversation, which would put him, in my opinion, further away from Michael than it would put him further away to Michael and put Steph closer in that top 3 GOAT conversation. Because in the LeBron James era, LeBron lost to Steph, joined Steph, and then won a championship. That's just from a legacy perspective. Moving on to another move that was made earlier on by the Celtics. They moved off Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, which put them under the second apron of the salary cap. So they got out of whatever luxury tax they would have to pay, which was astronomical that the new ownership didn't want to pay. And now they have reported that they don't want to move off Jaylen Brown or Derek White unless those offers are astronomical and make sense. Jaylen Brown, in my honest opinion, he can be the number 1 for a year for the Celtics. If not, when Jason Tatum comes back, I still think Jaylen Brown could be that number 1 option. That duo between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I think they have another championship or 2 in them. I really genuinely believe they have another championship or 2 in them. They've made it to multiple Eastern Conference championship games. They won a championship together. Jaylen Brown was the MVP there. I think as long as you have those 2 guys, you can build the team around them, right? They got in return for Drew Holiday, Anthony Simmons, who has been reported that he's going to be on the move again. I don't think he's going to remain on the Celtics. They also got 2 future second-round picks in exchange for Drew Holiday, who went to the Portland Trail Blazers, who drafted, in my opinion, Young Hassan, who we'll talk about here in a bit. And then they also traded away Kristaps Porzingis for literally nickel on the dollar. Now, when they moved off Kristaps Porzingis, it was a 3-team trade where Terrence Mann and Drake Powell, who was the 22nd overall pick in 2025, went to the Nets. George Niang in a second rounder went to the Celtics, and Kristaps Porzingis went to the Hawks, plus a second-round pick. And now Kristaps gets to pair with Trae Young, who I think Trae Young still has it in him. Atlanta's has made some moves this offseason in order for them to compete and essentially make the playoffs next year. And I think they have their franchise guy in Trae Young. I think with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis, with Alexander Walker joining that team, I think they're making enough moves to be able to be somewhat competitive next year, at least make the playoffs. Hopefully not be a play-in team, but be a solid playoff team, and which would be good for Trae Young, which would be good for the Hawks. They lost Clint Capella to the Houston Rockets. Now, Houston Rockets, ladies and gentlemen, they have been on a fucking tear this offseason. They traded for Kevin Durant. They gave up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and multiple draft picks for the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Kevin Durant. And realistically, in my personal opinion, they won that trade. Then they went off ahead in this offseason. They signed center Clint Capella back to the team who they originally drafted Clint. Now he's back on a 3-year, $21.5 million deal. Then they all went out and signed Dorian Finney-Smith. So they now have defense. They have depth. They have offense. Houston is legitimately becoming a team that is going to be competing and contending for a title, I think, next year. I know I said when they traded for KD in my last episode that I think they wouldn't get past the first round, or I think they could get past the first round, maybe make it to the conference semis. But with these moves, the depth that the Houston Rockets now have, even after losing Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green, they have KD. They have a weapon who can be a number 1 option if they need him to be. If not, he can be 1A, 1B type situation. I think Amen Thompson's going to take a step forward. Şengün is still on the rise. He's a Jokic light. He's not necessarily Jokic yet. And then we got Clint Capella and Dorian Finney-Smith. Houston, if there's ever a time for you to buy Houston stock, I think it would be right now. And next year, Houston is going to take that step forward, in my opinion, which kind of sucks for my Warriors, which kind of sucks for Lakers fans, because Lakers fans and Warriors have not done shit this this offseason so far. Now, another move that also caught my attention was Michael Porter Jr. being traded from the Denver Nuggets to the Nets for Cameron Johnson. And honestly, I think that's a minor upgrade. No offense to Michael Porter Jr., who's a champion in his own right, who plays phenomenal, who has played phenomenal for the Denver Nuggets in his time there. Cameron Johnson, younger, more athletic, or younger athletic player, can hit the three, can drive, defend. I think Cameron Johnson is going to play very well next to Nikola Jokic. I think whoever they bring in to be the head coach, I don't know if they've announced who the next head coach for the Denver Nuggets is yet. But I personally think, or if the interim became the full time, but I think adding Cameron Johnson there to the Denver Nuggets to help bolster that offense on both sides of the ball, because I think Cam Johnson can also play defense. Is great. Nuggets are also making improvements to try to bolster their team up. A player that made money off their playoff performance, really quickly. Luke Cornett signing a 4-year deal with the San Antonio Spurs, I think for like 41 million or 40 plus million a year. Good for him. Good for him. Luke Cornett in his time in the league has not necessarily played that much basketball. But last year when the Celtics needed him, he showed up, he showed out, and he earned his money, which is great. Which is great for Luke Cornett, who now gets, bro. San Antonio now has the Twin Towers. Luke Cornett is like 7'1". Wembanyama is like 7'4". Like, bro, I feel Houston, San Antonio for a playoff series. Like, I want to see that. I think that'll be a phenomenal. You got KD, you got Amon Thompson, you got like fucking it's the city of New York versus each other, basically. Just all buildings, skyscrapers. Jesus Christ. Pelicans made another move. They traded CJ McCollum and Kelly Olynyk to the Washington Wizards for Jordan Poole, Sadiq Bey, Micah Peavy, and the 40th pick in this year's draft, which I forget who it was. But yeah, CJ McCollum, the Pelicans are going young. They're going young. I think they're still trying to figure out if Zion is going to be that guy. I think they still have BI. But Jordan Poole, he used to be a former Warrior, didn't necessarily work out well with the Wizards, where he wanted to be the face. Now he's going to be just another guy on the squad, another guy on the bench, just getting his points, maybe being able, now that this is his third stop, being able to develop into a character where he can lead guys, or just be a guy that fits in the locker room and make smarter decisions, because some of his decisions are just stupid decisions that he makes when he has the ball in his hands. Austin Reeves turned down his contract with the Lakers, mainly because the Lakers only made the offer so that it wouldn't be disrespectful, but they knew that the contract wasn't going to be agreed to. They're going to try to sign him next year to a 4-year, $96 million max contract extension. A move that happened earlier on was Orlando trading for Desmond Bane, giving up KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 unprotected first-round picks, and a first-round pick swap with the Memphis Grizzlies. And Cole Anthony is also not guaranteed to stay with the Grizzlies. I think they're working out on a deal so he can move out and they can open up salary cap space that they need to sign somebody else. But Desmond Bane of the Orlando Magic, I don't know if that necessarily makes them full-fledged title contenders in the upcoming season for the East. But with all the moves happening in the Eastern Conference, it could be something in the right step for them to actually be able to compete with all the injuries that have occurred. The New York Knicks have stayed active this offseason, even though they don't have a head coach. It's reported that they're doing their second interview with Mike Brown for the New York Knicks head coaching position. But they have Utah Jazz basically bought out Jordan Clarkson, and Clarkson has signed a contract to go and play with the New York Knicks, which is great because even though they don't have their head coach, they are adding depth. And we know Tibbs did not like going deep in his bench. If they go for Mike Brown, they have a good core. They already have the players there. All they would necessarily need is just the depth. They just need a bench. They need 4 or 5. They need 3 to 4 guys from the bench that they can rely on at any moment and go out there, play defense, get the points, get the assists, play make if they can. And Jordan Clarkson is that guy. He can shoot the 3. I think he's a great ball handler. And he's a good backup point guard, good second guard for Jalen Brunson out there in New York. So this move by New York, in my honest opinion, is a great move. D'Angelo Russell has signed a 2-year deal with the Dallas Mavericks. Mavericks are also making some moves to try to stack up, especially after they drafted Cooper Flag. It'll be interesting to see what the Mavericks ultimately pan out to be this upcoming year, especially because we know Kyrie Irving isn't going to be back until sometime in January. And then last but not least, to wrap up this entire NBA segment, and not necessarily NBA move related, Malik Beasley is under investigation by, I think, the FBI or the district attorney's office for gambling and gambling on NBA games. And if that is the case, I think his NBA career is 100% over. Hopefully it's not true that Malik Beasley gambled on NBA games or gambled on himself, especially because I think he's a good player. I thought he had a great career with the Detroit Pistons. I think he was in contract negotiations with the Utah Jazz, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Now everything's been basically tabled, and it's come out that he's been in financial troubles the last few years, I guess. But hey, prayers out to Malik Beasley. Hopefully it's not true. If there is more stuff that comes out that I can actually fully dive into and read and like just give you my thoughts on, I will. But yeah, I'm praying that it's not true, because I would hate it if his NBA career ended like this, and it would end just like Pete Rose's career basically ended in baseball. The only difference is Pete Rose was a legend. Malik Beasley sadly is not, and the millions of dollars that he made in his career, now that goes away, right? So we'll see what happens. Best of wishes to Malik and his family and all of his endeavors. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so to wrap up the NBA for the day, DeAndre Ayton has agreed to a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. And although they have finally found their center who they can run the pick and roll with Luka Doncic, somebody that looks like it will be a viable option and allow them to compete, I just don't think DeAndre Ayton is going to be enough for them to compete against the Denver Nuggets, who have gotten not drastically, but who have gotten better, in my opinion, this offseason. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who were just in the Western Conference Finals, even though they lost 5 games to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are the current champions. And let's not forget the Houston Rockets, who have made tremendous moves this offseason. I didn't think they were going to really take a step forward just by adding KD, but since then they've added Clint Capella, they've added Dorian Finney-Smith. Their starting 5 is deep. They're a deep squad, and I think those 4 teams literally are ahead of the Lakers. We'll see what they do. I also think Portland, and this is going to actually be the last topic that I'll be discussing. I think the Portland Trailblazers, even though they've gone young, they brought in Drew Holiday, who's an experienced vet, who's a champion. Young Hassan they drafted, who in the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, Kwang Dao, in his 2 years there, I think he was top 10, if not top 3 in rebounding. He averaged about 15 to 16 points playing with grown men. He's 20 years old. So I think this rookie, the first Chinese player we've drafted, or the NBA has drafted, I think in 17 years. I think there's a potential that he's a star. I think there's a very true potential that he will be the face of the Portland Trailblazers. Because if you look at his highlights, ladies and gentlemen, Yang Hassan is legitimately the guy. He looks like a much more athletic and a bit more mobile and limber Jokic. He can drive, he can play make, he can rebound. He led, I think, the CBA in blocks. So Yang Hassan plus the pieces that are around him in Portland. I know they moved off Anthony Simmons, but they got a deep squad. I believe in Chauncey Billups, and maybe they bring back Dame towards the end of the season. I think Portland is going to be able to compete this year. So we'll see what happens. Those are my thoughts currently on the NBA situation. Now let's switch over to the WNBA, where
Guys, you're watching a Shady Mob production. Make sure to follow the Shady Mob podcast, where we break down all the latest content and talk about life. Please make sure to share, like, comment, and subscribe so you can be notified when the latest content drops.
Guys, join me, Alex the Man Angelov, and check out A&A Radio, where we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest financial news, investments, banking, and personal finance. Check out the channel and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when the latest content drops.